Hi everybody, it's Maria from cardbomb.com. Thanks for joining me. Today I will be sharing this fun watercolor project that I made using Altenew Watercolor Brush markers and a piece of acetate. I was looking to find a way that I could get a loose watercolor look, but still get the ink placed perfectly within my stamped image. I used a basic ink spushing technique and modified it just a little bit. The markers that I'm using for today's project are a new release from Altenew, and this set is called Tropical Fiesta. There are 10 vibrant, gorgeous colors in this set, and as you can see, the barrel of each pen is filled with highly pigmented ink, and a little bit goes a long way. To start this project, I placed a piece of Arch's cold press watercolor paper into my stamp positioner, and I put a beautiful stamp from Altenew on top. I used VersaFine ink to stamp my image because I know it won't bleed when I add a ton of water. Next, I'm going to stamp the same image onto a piece of acetate, being careful not to smear my ink. Now I'm going to grab my markers in lime, turquoise, purple wine, and fresh lemon. Flip your acetate sheet over. That's critical. You need to be coloring on the back side of the stamped image and not on the side that has the ink. As you start laying down color, it's really important to pay attention to the color combinations that you're using. Make sure that the colors that are next to each other are colors that will blend and mix well, so that as your colors start to bleed together, they will be beautiful. Now I'm going to take a spritzer and I'm going to spritz this inked up side of my acetate, and I will also generously spray my cardstock. Next I'm going to flip the acetate over and press it down onto the cardstock, making sure I line up the images so that the colors end up exactly where I wanted them. I'm using a napkin to first firmly press the image down, and then second to pick up the excess water and ink that has smushed out the sides. Now I'm using my watercolor brush markers to lay down some color on the side. I'm using Desert Night, Sweet Leaf, Sun Kissed, and Crimson, in addition to the colors I used in the first go-round. These colors are a little bit darker than the ones I used in my ink smushing, and they're really going to work well with the first colors that I had laid down. So the first color I'm going in with is Lime, and I'm just getting a basic wash over the areas that I want to have some green in. Now I'm adding a little bit of that Sweet Leaf in, and you can see that it's a bit darker of a green, and I'm doing it while the leaves are wet. The other thing that I want you to notice is that I'm doing the leaves, but I'm not at the same time doing the flower that is immediately adjacent to the leaves, because I can't have two side-by-side images wet at the same time. If I had the flower wet and the leaves wet, and I were trying to use different colors, all the colors would be bleeding together to make a big muddy mess. So it's really important to make sure that you're doing one image at a time and keeping your water and your colors separate from each other. I've already mentioned in the ink smushing part of this video how important it is to know about color combinations and which colors are going to blend well together and which ones are going to go muddy on you. But that really comes into play with this watercoloring here too. I really had a lot of fun doing this watercoloring because with that watercolor background already laid down, all I had to do was add some depth and shadows and some places that looked a bit more like highlights. So since the bottom watercolor wash was already dry, I made sure that I was adding a little bit of water before I added color, and then that water that was on the paper allowed me to drag color around and blend it in smoothly into the image. So this also allowed me to use interesting color combinations and put purple and yellow together and blend blue and pink to make another neat color of purple, to put blue into the leaves and pink as highlights. And it's just really fun to play around with the color when you do this, and I really think that having that base watercolor wash there as a background and as a guide really helps a lot. So I was just thinking back to something that I said, and I had said be really careful of your color combinations, and two colors that generally don't do well when mixed together are purple and yellow. And then right after I said be careful of your color combinations, I said, oh, I love putting purple and yellow together on this. And I want to be really clear that what's neat about this technique is that once that background watercolor wash is set, these Altenew watercolor markers don't lift very well, but that's a really great thing because once you get that color down in the background, you're then free to add colors on top, and they end up layering versus mixing. So on that top flower, you can see that petal that's in the front has sort of a yellow highlight, and on the bottom if it's pinkish and purplish. And the reason that I was able to do that and mix some purple into that yellow area was because it's layered and it's sitting on the top because the bottom wash had already dried. So when you use these, if you give it a little bit of time to dry, lay down some color and give the color a little bit of time to dry, you're going to be able to put a color on top that you normally might not be able to mix with it. So you're going to have to play around with it. I do think that these are going to react differently on different types of paper. So just know your paper, know what you're using, know how your colors are going to react. And if you're not sure and it's your first time playing with the colors, get a scratch piece of paper and do some swatches, mix some colors off to the side, let something dry, do a layer on top, and just see what's going to happen if you're not comfortable doing it on a stamped image right away. So I don't know if you noticed, but I switched out my paintbrush for a little bit of a larger paintbrush. I needed one that could hold more water so that I could paint this background and have it blend smoothly. I'm laying down a lot of water and then just adding some different random colors into it. And I will continue to do this all the way around my image so that the whole background is watercolored. One of the things that I am being careful of is I'm trying to create some contrast and maintain contrast. So if there is an area where I already have a really good contrast between my stamped image and my background, meaning that maybe my flower's dark and the background is light, so they have a clear separation, or my flower's light, then I'll want my background to be a little bit darker so that my flower stands out. I'm just trying to make sure that if I already have a good contrast, I'm not ruining it by adding more ink color or the wrong ink color. And if I don't have good contrast, then I'm trying to add some. So now that the watercolor wash is done in the background, I'm going back in and I'm just adding more layers to the stamped image. And I really think that that's the key, is just adding layer after layer of color, going back in and just adding a little hint of something, a little more blue here, a little more pink there, and just all those layers they blend so well together with these watercolor markers, with this ink. And now I'm going in with some crimson on that yellow flower. So I think this is the third time I've hit up that flower, and this is the darkest color that I've used on it yet. And there we go, that's it for the watercoloring for now. So I'm going to die cut this image out so that I can put it onto a card. But first, I'm going to hit it up with a Sharpie and a white gel pen. If you know me, you know this is something I love to do. I do it in a lot of my artwork, and I've done it in a couple of videos. But I love to go in with a Sharpie and just create some more depth and some shadows and some little scribbly lines and some details, some dots, some whatevers. This is just something that I think is really fun, and it adds some interest and some grunge and some sparkle to the images. You'll see when I start adding the white gel pen that adds even more magic. So if you've never taken a Sharpie to your stamped images before and you're interested in trying it, and you're wondering where you should start, then I would say with the black Sharpie, you want to start in all of those little areas where there would be shadows, where the image is pulled together, where there's a leaf tucked behind another part of an image. Those are the areas that you want to add the black Sharpies. The white gel pen you're going to add where there would be light hitting the image. So the tops of the leaves and the rounded parts, pieces that are furled outwards, those are where you're going to put those little white details. And then again, I'm going back in. Now that I've added some white highlights, it looks like I need some more shadows and some more details. And then the last bit is I'm going in with my white gel pen again, and I'm just adding some scribbles out and around the image. Now I'm going to grab a black brush tip pen and flick it using the inside of the cap so that I get some black grungy splatters on my stamped image and watercolored image piece and on the card base as well. Now I'm grabbing my white liquid watercolor from Hero Arts, and I'm just dripping a couple of drops of that onto the side and using a paintbrush to absorb it. And I'm going to splatter it onto my artwork, but I didn't get as much as I wanted, so I ended up having to add a couple more drops of that liquid watercolor. It's really thick, it's awesome, and now that I've gotten more, I was able to get quite a bit more onto my background, and I really wanted that to show on the side as a frame, as a border for my stamped image piece. So there that is, and now I'm going to turn this into a card by adding foam tape onto the back of it. And I have a stamped sentiment that I've done ahead of time, and it's embossed white on black. And that's going to go dead center of the card base. And now I'm going to add my sentiment on. I love you just the way you are. I think that's such a fantastic sentiment. And it just needed a little bit of something, so I decided to add some sequins, and these are moonshine sequins from Simon Says Stamp. Now I'm using my crystal accents from Ranger to adhere the sequins to my card, and that is it. Thanks for joining me today, you guys. If you'd like more information on these Altenew watercolor brush markers, which I think are fantastic, I'd love to have you hop over to my blog. The link to my blog is in the comments below, and I hope you all have a fantastic day. Bye!